estate property. I'm a full service real estate broker. I'm a full service, I'm a full service general contractor. I'm also an insurance company. And we also do bail bond too. Of course, we do a multitude of, of several things. I'm very diverse and skillful in all phases of real estate in terms of when it comes to acquisition, dispositions um, of property and land. I um I started my career in real estate back in 1997 um, as a real estate investor, and in '98 I got my license. I worked for companies like Century 21 and O'Connor Piper and Flynn. About 15 years ago, I decided to step out and do my own thing. So I created Kemp and Associates Real Estate and Property Management. Of course, with a focus on bringing democracy and housing and equality in terms of our people. And I don't want to just focus on our people, but that was my initial concept. Um, so with that being said, um, I was able to expand my career by attending the University of Baltimore, um, where I got a degree in real estate and economic development. So I was able to focus on the development process and understanding the functional excellence and the need in terms of infrastructure uh, based on the jurisdiction and what makes it important, a, 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 a major parcel rather than just being a local or state jurisdiction. And of course, with that being said, I found the information and the insight to be very useful. So with that being said, um, I'm open to answering any questions that, of course, the panel may have for me. That way I can focus on your interests instead of just talking generally about real estate.
So I know, Darryl, a lot of questions. This is something we started about last month, and we had some professionals on, but a lot of questions were centered around real estate investing with a concentration on land acquisition,
Mm,
buying land to flip it or buying land to build upon it. So let's talk about first the first portion. If somebody wanted to acquire land, um, is that different from the process of acquiring like a commercial real estate property? What is the difference in that process?
absolutely. That's a very unique process, and it can be a costly process. Most land acquisition is actually considered a commercial transaction. All right. And what you'll find in most commercial transactions, well, let me take a step back, in land acquisitions, is that there is a process in buying land in the state of Maryland. And there are four things that you should focus on when you do decide to purchase actual land. All right. And it can be challenging. But one of the key things that you want to actually focus on in terms of buying land in the state of Maryland is that finding the right land. What It's important to understand the process because, of course, when you're finding vacant land, what can that land be used for? What's the process? What it requires? So the just knowing what you're looking for and what you're going to use it for. But the key thing is, where do I start? Where do I start in this process? Because depending on your vision or your goal or your intended use for that particular asset will determine where you start. Say, for instance, an individual wants to purchase a plot of land and build, let's say, residential property. There's a lot that's involved in that process because the acquisition of that land is going to depend on what you can use that land for. So there's a lot of research and homework that the individual has to do before they actually acquire that actual piece of land. So with that being said, of course, you need to know the zoning laws, the intended use, uh, the size of the land that you want to use it for, and then you want to know the legal requirements and environment. All right. So those 5 things is really, really important. Just know that the zoning laws in each jurisdiction varies based on the municipality and the intended use. All right. That's really, really important to understand what it can be actually zoned for. And the zoning laws consist of the size of the property, the acreage that's going to be built on. Say, for instance, if you bought an acre and you decide that you want to put on, or I'm sorry, build approximately a 5,000 square foot property, individual property, but you bought an acre of land. Again, if you have not done your due diligence in terms of checking with the local municipality in terms of what you can and cannot do with that piece of land, that will be a wasted piece of purchase, or a wasted acquisition on your part. The local municipality determines what you can build, the size that you can build, and the way that you can build on that particular acre of land. And the reason being, stay on that acre. That acre, putting a 5,000 square foot lot, say you wanted to put it to the right, left portion. I'll say right, if it's a square piece, the upper left portion of the house, I'm sorry, of the land. With that being said, and then what you built based on your, or what you designed based on your concept and use on that acre of land, is to put that 5,000 square foot of property on that piece of land. The local jurisdiction says, no, we will allow you to put 4,000 square feet, and you can only build it to the left bottom and not the right upper center or left. The reason being is because this land has to be left, of course, for environmental purpose, agricultural purpose, and keep in mind, because you own an acre of land, don't means that you have full full control to do exactly what it is that you want to do, because a certain amount of that land has to be left for environmental purpose. It has to be left for deers and birds and trees and everything else. And so the local jurisdiction / municipality controls what can go on that property and not. So if you wanted to build a 5,000 square foot property, but the local jurisdiction says all you can put is a 4,000 square foot property, it changes everything. Not to mention, with that being said, of course, with the size, taking that into consideration, what's the access? Are we purchasing an improved lot or unimproved lot? If we purchase an improved lot, yes, that cuts down on the cost. However, we have to look at the infrastructure of that actual improvement. Is it Is it existing? If it's existing, but it's old and it's been in the ground for, let's say, 150 years, then there's probably 9 times out of 10 time to dig that up and change out the utility, the improvements of it in terms of your underground utilities and conduit and everything else. Or if it's not existing, now you have to determine in terms of doing a little bit more research. If it's in a rural area, does it have power? Does it have underground utilities such as water, sewage? Um, does it have that coming into that particular area? And and exactly, can you tap into it? So, of course, there's a cost associated with it that's going to determine basically by footage. Because we're talking about an acre of land. At the same time, if it's undeveloped land, we have to bring water, sewage, and electric to this particular property. Is it possible? Which means that if it's not possible to bring sewage and water, now we have to figure out, can we tap for a well? Is that feasible? And do we need to deal with I lost my train of thought. And sewage. Do we need to go with septic? So that will determine another cost. And at the same time, the power system. Is there gas in that particular area? If there's not gas in that particular area, then it comes down to it comes down to, do I deal with oil or do I deal with propane? So there's a lot that's involved in a land acquisition, and the cost can be very, very costly, or it can be economic to you. But at the same time, the one thing that you want to take into consideration, the planning process and the research, because we still have to take into consideration the topography, which consists of the soil. Can we build on that soil? Can we not? Is it swampland? Is it dry? Is it wetland? Is it stable enough? What type of soil are we building on? Do we have to deal with ingress and egress? At the same time, we're dealing with easements, access to the land for public use, such as utility poles and um, um, is the possible, excuse me, is the land actually near like factories, power plants? Exactly, what's the runoff? Is it contaminated? If it's not, so there's a lot of money that has to be spent in this process before you even take possession of the property, which comes down to the acquisition portion. When you're working with an agent, you want to make sure that your agent is knowledgeable, is actually knowledgeable enough to answer these questions. Because a lot of the money when you purchase a piece of land really is not refundable during that process, because that process can take anywhere from 4 months to 4 years to close. And it's a very, very lengthy process when you're coming at it from a developer standpoint. If you're not coming at it from a developer standpoint, do me a favor, hold for a second. All right. If you're not coming from a developer process, but you just see a small lot and it's just something that you want to build a house on and it's already developed, then that's not a problem. But when we're talking about undeveloped land, when you're driving down the highway and it says 25 acres of land for sale, just know you can't build on 25 acres of land. Just know that probably only a third to maybe 40% of that is what you're going to be able to build on. You're not going to be able to build on everything. You're not going to be able to just rip it out. You know, there's a very, very lengthy process in terms of hearings. The community has to want what you're putting, whether it's putting up a group of townhomes or going into a development and just bringing in a brand new cul-de-sac of brand new homes. The community has to want that. So there's hearings, there's variances that you may have to apply for, because variance is very, very important. If you're blocking somebody's view, that's a reason to shut it down. Meaning, if I purchase my property, let's say 5 years ago, and my view of what I had isn't actually on the water. I'm gonna use the water for instance, isn't actually on the beach, but the view that I had is let's say it's probably about a quarter of a mile from the beach, but I can see the water. I can see everything what's going on. Now that you're gonna put that building in front of my view, it takes away the whole purpose of why I purchased that property. So a variance is going to be required. Or say for instance, I live in a 5-story building, but they want to put a 10-story building in front of the building that I'm currently living in. And I just have a condo. I would probably attend that hearing because it would be a variance, because once again, you're blocking the view as to why I purchased that property in the first place. There's a lot that's involved. There's a lot that's going to be spent, meaning that the deposit that you put on a property, just that land itself, is probably not going to be refundable, because of the mere fact what you're asking that owner to do is to take that property off the market while you do what's called a feasibility study. The feasibility study is going to allow you to get all your perk tests in terms of the ground, make sure that the soil is not polluted, make sure the environmental is safe, and making sure that there's no contaminants. At the same time, you checking with with the local municipality, and making sure that there's no that you're able to build on that property and do exactly what it is that you want. And then on a section of the parcel that you're interested in, you want to make sure that the design concept that you have is very, very feasible and doesn't have to be shifted. So there's a lot involved in that process that 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 puts you in a position where, in terms of timing and being able to close that asset ASAP, that doesn't allow you to go through that process as smoothly as an individual would want. And then, of course, you have the community. A lot of times the communities, at least half the community, doesn't want what you're trying to bring. So the participation in what you're trying to do means that the actual involvement in the community, you have to be somewhat aggressive to actually hold the meetings yourself, to bring the community together and get their input and allow what they want to be a part of the concept that you have in order for your deal to go through. Because if not, the community support in fighting you, you'll be wasting a lot of time and a lot of money, and you probably won't get the acquisition of the land itself, of course, to do what you want to do. Now, I'm talking about big development deals. Now, if we're just talking about a small lot to build a small home, it's something different. It's already allocated for that. It's already taken care of. But if you're talking about doing big acquisitions, that's a totally different process. Did I answer your questions?
You did more than that. Thank you so much. It was a thorough breakdown. As you were sharing, I was dropping notes in the chat box. you
Mhm.
know, little notes from what you were saying so people can refer back to it. And we have good positive feedback. People are saying good information on the process. They're definitely appreciative of the information. Great insight is another comment. Very informative was another comment in the chat box. I'm gonna open up the line if anyone had any follow-up questions about that. And then I guess part B would be if a person wanted to buy land with the intent to flip it and sell it. They may not want to redevelop. They want to buy, flip, and sell.
That's very, very possible. Now, the only thing about land, undeveloped land, and what I said about undeveloped land before, developed land is what has sewage, water, and power already running through it. Undeveloped land is just raw land. It's trees still on it. It doesn't have anything running through it. There's a difference. Banks normally will not finance undeveloped land. Now, if the land has a parcel on it, let's say an old shack, and the shack is 200 years old, that's considered to be, of course, developed land. So they will actually loan you the money for that. But if it's undeveloped land, 9 times out of 10, the bank will not loan you the money. So there's different approaches in terms of acquiring that actual land itself. Of course, you can deal with hard money or private money. And of course, that's engaging in a private hard money partnership, of course, with a personal lender. Um, FHA does have some resources where, or um, um, some programs that they have allocated for certain land acquisition, but not many. Um, of course, um, in terms of purchasing that particular land, um, if you have cash, um, that's another way. But the land acquisition process itself is very, very hard. So there is 3 types of loan processes that an individual can get involved in. All right, and those processes can be somewhat tedious, but this is what the bank will actually loan you the money on. It's called a construction to permanent loan, meaning if you purchase the land and it has to be somewhat of a vacant land where it's developed already, meaning that it has water, sewage, and stuff like that already running through it, then the construction to permanent loan, it allows you to build a residence on that property if it's for personal use for yourself. It allows you to build a residence on that vacant land. And then once the residence is completed, it allows you to convert that mortgage over to a permanent mortgage. All right. With the focus on why the land is going through the development process. Basically, what you're paying is interest only on that particular asset. Now, on an unimproved land alone, um, um, most banks will not um, loan you money on that, but they will allow you to, once you acquire the land, borrow the money to add the infrastructure, of course, such as water, sewage, power source, to do what you need to do. So, of course, you may have to come out your pocket with the acquisition cost, but the development cost, they'll loan you on that. And then at the same time, the last one is what is it called? Um, oh, improve land loan, an improved land loan, an improved land loan. It 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 already has the water and structure and the infrastructure in place, and it just allows you to build on it. Now, that particular loan is a temporary loan. With that being said, that temporary loan will end up, of course, converting over to a permanent loan, quite the same way like a construction to permanent loan. So those are the different ways of acquiring actual land, unless you partner up in a private-public partnership, or if you have your own cash. It gives you the ability, of course, to acquire the land. But like I said, that process can be very, very lengthy. Most land development deals, depending on what you pay for the land, will determine what you price those properties for. And depending on the municipality, based on your design concept and vision in terms of where you at, will determine what style properties and what type of properties, which will generate a value. So there's a lot of variables that goes into this concept, meaning the price point will be determined based first on the land acquisition, what you pay for. All right, that's really, really important to understand, because if the land costs you, say, 28 acres costs you a total of, let's say, $2 million. Now, $2 million is not a lot for 28 acres, but it can be if you're doing a development process. Because now I already have to have him um, in process what it's going to take to develop 28 acres. Remember, we got to bring a lot there. We got to bring curb and gutters. We got to bring infrastructure. We got to bring signage. We got to bring a lot. And at the same time, we got to bring the municipality requirements. Because on 28 acres, we building almost a little city. So that means we got to bring fire hydrants. We got to bring lights. We got to bring lights. We got to bring, it's a whole bunch that's involved in it. And we got to make sure that the resources that we have make sense. So if someone's selling a 28-acre land, 9 times out of 10, they're going to probably require you to put down 10 to 15% as an earnest money deposit, because you're going to tie that land up for probably at least 2 years. So while that land is being tied up, 9 times out of 10, that earnest money deposit is going to be non-refundable. So the land acquisition process is totally different than the residential process, because in most residential transactions, if something happens with the lending and things of that nature, then the deal falls through. 9 times out of 10, the buyer's going to get their earnest money back. With a land acquisition and a development process, you have to write that $200,000 or that $300,000 off as trial and error money. So it's a totally different mindset.
Hey, Darryl, a couple of
Yes.
questions in the chat box. Thank you for that. That's bringing a lot more insight. So I think it's like 4 questions in the chat. I'm gonna go with the first one. The first question says, what type of land would we use for land trust? The question again is, what type of land would we use for land trust?
So land trust is a little different. Land trust is just a concept in terms of what you're trying to build an equitable state on it, meaning that a land trust itself is how you deem in exactly how the land should be utilized. So it's not so much of the land itself. Land is land. There's no more real estate being built in this world. The real estate that you see is exactly what it is. There's no more real estate. So The use of that land and how it will be used is where the land trust portion actually comes into play. So if that answers your question, the land trust just gives uh, uh, direction and gives some structure in how this actual parcel or this asset should be used and transferred.
Thank you. The next question is, can land be donated to a nonprofit organization?
Yes, anything can be donated. The tax implications depends on the municipality and the state in which you're in, but any form of real estate can be donated. All right, it can also be acquired. It can also be taken. So yes, it can be donated.
And it's two more questions in the chat. I'm gonna
Mhm.
read the next one. It says Miss Cat, about some old land patents. How can I acquire that land if I have the patents?
If you have the patent, all right, so that's a legal question, and I can't answer legal questions because I'm not an attorney. Um, that is something. A patent and a deed is two different things. So if you have no rights to that land, unless you're talking about legacy, that it was handed down to you and that you're entitled, then that's a different approach too. However, a patent doesn't necessarily give you ownership to land, because most lands is either going to have a deed, it's not going to have a patent itself.
Thank you so
Did I
much
answer
for
your
that.
question?
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I don't know if the gentleman that posed a question, if you wanted to speak on that or had any follow up, but if not, we have another question in the chat. It says, is title insurance recommended or required when you're purchasing land?
Absolutely. I always recommend that. Of course, that's one of the most important parts of land acquisition is, of course, to make sure that there's no liens, no encumbrance. Of course, make sure that there's no environmental issues, no contaminants, no, of course, no citations or anything on that portion. So title insurance will protect you from all of that. Because if you should have known these items before these items actually came about, so meaning anything before the acquisition is not your responsibility. Anything after the acquisition is your responsibility, which means title insurance protects you for anything that happened before it, and the fact that you didn't have knowledge of it, which means that the title company should have did their due diligence in making sure that that property is being transferred free and clear, because information is power. Because if you had known that there was major issues with that land, you probably wouldn't have purchased it. So if they don't give you everything, and they only give you, say, the good and not the bad and the ugly, and the title company just wants the transaction, of course, to go through, then it puts you at risk and at harm. So therefore, you have to protect your investment. I always recommend the title insurance. And and lastly, if you want to sell that property and these clouds pop up on the deed and the title, now you can't transfer it because those items still has to be taken care of. So say you decide to develop the land and you was able to develop 28 acres and you put 400 townhomes and 25 single family homes, and now it's time for you to start selling those particular property. Well, that all transfer on the deed of the property that you're trying to sell, which means that all that development means nothing because you can't sell that particular property because it still has clouds on the title. So all that has to be clear. So title insurance protects you from anything prior to the acquisition. Did I answer your question?
No, that was very thorough. Thank you for that. Another follow up to something you mentioned a few minutes ago about deed. We know it's a lot of things that we see online about tax deed properties. If somebody's just trying to get into real estate investing, is that a good
Tax
strategy?
sales?
Yeah, the tax deed. Is that a strategy for a newbie just getting into real estate investing?
Uh,
What would you
look,
say?
look, tax sales are a very, very unique product. All right. Tax sales, 96, well, maybe 95.5% of the people that's doing tax sales are attorneys. And they really don't want the property. They want the money. Because exactly what happened. Maryland, up until 10 years ago, they had no regulations on what attorneys could do in terms of being active in the tax foreclosure process. So I'm glad they put these rules in place because it's crazy. Because exactly what will happen if you paid your taxes, say you're a homeowner and you forgot to pay your taxes because it's not being escrowed in your mortgage. Because the buyer has the right, or the homeowner has the right to either get the taxes and insurance escrowed in their property, meaning that it becomes a part of the mortgage, and the mortgage company pays the taxes and insurance, or the homeowner can actually pay the taxes themselves and the insurance. And with that being said, say that you are one that opted out of an escrow and decided that you're going to pay it, but you forgot to pay 2023, and now we're in 2024 and forgot to pay that too. So now your property goes up, of course, for a tax sale. All right. It goes up for a tax sale, even though there's a mortgage on the property. Now, what's going to happen, first and foremost, is that the bank isn't going to let that property actually go into default. All right. So the bank's not going to do that, which means that they're 9 times out of 10 going to actually pay those taxes. But then their penalty to you can be very, very harsh. But say, for instance, you don't have a mortgage on the property, or that the bank, or just say before the bank actually pays the taxes, you decide to pay the tax. The attorney fees up until 10 years ago was unlimited. So exactly what will happen, I say the tax is only $2,500, and now you owe for 23 and you owe for 24. So that's $5,000 plus interest plus penalty. All right. And now, of course, you have the 5,000. Well, that's not actually a $5,000 bill, because now the attorney that purchased your tax is going to add on his legal fees, which is going to probably be another anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000. So now you got your $5,000 plus your penalty plus the attorney fees, and that's what the attorney wants. Plus, he's going to get 18% interest on the actual taxes that he pays. So he's going to get 5,000 plus the 18% plus his attorney fees. That's what they want. They really don't want the property. Now, if they get the property, it's a bonus. But the expectation of really getting the property, they're not expecting to get it. They just want the attorney fees. Most people don't understand the process, and buying taxes or paying taxes. There's a process that has to start, which means that once you acquire those property taxes and you get the certificate that you actually paid those taxes on it, you must start the foreclosure process. And once you start the foreclosure process, that's where the legal fees actually starts. So meaning all I got to do is inform one person, look, we are starting foreclosure process because we just acquired the taxes on this property. Now, mind you, Maryland is a redemption state. So the individual that owns that particular asset or that property has the right to to redeem their property all the way up until the tax lien deed is actually signed by a judge. That process normally takes about 18 months. All right. Now, if you dealing with properties that's already on the tax sale list, meaning not the ones that's coming up for tax sale, and I think tax sale is in April or May of of every year. I think it's April or May, but there's properties that's already on the book. Those don't take 18 months. Those take anywhere from 8 to maybe 10 months. All right. Those is already went through the process. But the ones that's brand new coming on the list can be a lengthy process. So meaning attorneys will jump on it. You have to start the foreclosure process. If you don't start the foreclosure process, then what you did was just started, of course, just pay somebody taxes just for free. But again, it's a very, very tedious, timely process that at most is going to get you 18% interest on your money. I'm sorry, they just lowered it to 12% interest on your money. If you're not an attorney, then all you're going to make, probably realistically, is 12%, but your money's going to be tied up for 18 months, almost. And then you're going to make 12% on it.
Hello.
It's going to make all the money.
As you can see, Darryl Kemp is very knowledgeable in this arena. So, you meet different individuals that may be in real estate, but then you also then meet someone like Mr. Kemp, where this is what he does. His company, when it comes to real estate, whether it be residential, whether it be commercial, land, questions that are being presented, he's able to effectively answer it. We're going to drop his contact information in the chat feed. As we get ready to wind down, there is one more question. I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but I'm going to just read it. This one deals with wholesaling. It says wholesaling, you can just play the middleman and get a property under contract and just find an end buyer to buy you out on that contract.
Yes, I don't speak too much on wholesaling because I don't like wholesalers, and I'll tell you why. Wholesalers take advantage of people that's in distress, and that's going through probably basically like a hardship. So I've seen at tables where I've actually represented a buyer, and a contract was being assigned because it was a wholesaler at the table, and the purchaser, in terms of a real estate brokerage like my company, of course, we won't know that it's an actual wholesale deal unless they let us know. But I've seen at the table where sellers that actually own the property, they may walk away with 5 or 10,000, and a wholesaler walk away with 50, 60, 70,000. And the actual owner is crying. And I've heard them say, well, did I not promise you that I'll take care of the expenses that you had? I took care of your taxes. I made sure your property was able to sell. And I told you I would give you like $10,000. But the owner like, well, I didn't know you would walk away with 60, 70,000, where they was almost ready to fight. Where if most people understand the process, that if they would just speak to a realtor and get the true value of what their property is, then it will make sense. Meaning a wholesaler is going to come in and undercut the value of what your property is, and they're going to walk away with the bulk of your money. Where I'm looking at people's legacy, their hard-earned work, and just to watch someone come and take that from them. I have 32 agents that works in my brokerage, and I don't allow any wholesaling to take place in my brokerage. That's not what we do. When we take on and become a licensed real estate person, we, in the process of accepting that license, the Maryland Real Estate Commission says, I'm a consumer, but the whole purpose is to protect the consumer. And as a licensed real estate agent, I can't come to you and say, look, I can put your property on the market for $150,000. I can put your property on the market for $150,000. However, um, 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 knowing that it's worth, of course, let's say $300,000. I know you got a note of 100,000. I'm gonna make sure that you walk away with 50,000. But I end up selling your property for $265,000, and I keep your money. That totally defeats me as a broker, as a licensed real estate broker that has 30-something agents that works under it. That's, I mean, that's misleading. That's just a total distrust of what a real estate brokerage and company does. So I don't get involved with wholesale. So I'm sorry I can't answer your questions on wholesale because that's not what we do, and we will never do it. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. I dropped your contact information in the chat. For anybody that wants to follow up with Mr. Kemp regarding real estate, whether it be residential or commercial. I put the email. Darryl, I dropped the D Kemp KNA@gmail in there.
Yes, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay. And I put the contact number in there as well. Like I said, I've known Darryl well over 10 years. His work ethics is at 100. So if you want to connect with someone dealing with real estate for yourself personally or on the business side, if you want to get into the real estate investing side, I know his work ethics personally, and so he's definitely a person that you would want to connect with. If there aren't any other questions, um, Valicia mentioned she would like to get her first property. I would like, no, let me see. I would like my first property to be in an investment. I was thinking either a duplex or an assisted living. Any input? And that'll be the last question for today.
Yes. Again, think about your acquisition. Do you want something that's already improved and updated and upgraded, or are you looking to acquire a shell and then, of course, do the upgrades yourself? There's a couple different approaches, and the reason why I say that is because something that's already improved and upgraded and updated is going to probably cost you a lot more money than something that, if it's a shell and of course you're going into it and fixing it up the way that you want, you're probably going to have more equity in that asset once it's completed, rather than being at the top that it's already maxed out. One. Second, the concept and the design of what it is that you want in terms of the use for the property is going to make a lot more sense, because as you're going through the construction process, you can design that asset to conform to what it is that you're looking for it to do. So, and being a real estate investor, there's a couple of things that you have to know: that you're the general. The buck starts with you and it stops with you. So everybody on your team has to understand who you are, what you are, and they have to be in tune with what it is you're trying to do. All right. If it does not start and stop with you, then you're going to be the person that's going to take a big loss. You have to understand acquisition, carrying, contribution, marketing, all those different aspects in terms of what it takes to get a positive ROI on your investment. And then in terms of your approach, the percentage of what it is you're looking for has to make sense. Like a lot of people in real estate investment, or that's new to it, says, I want to double my money or I want to triple my money, or I want to get like almost 50, 60% return. That's not a real number. The real number in real estate investment, especially in today's market, is roughly anywhere between 19 and 31%. That's the expected return on your real estate investment. And then there's multiple ways of getting involved. And of course, um, um, the real estate investment aspect. If you're going to buy and flip, if you want to build a portfolio, to build a quote residual income, and then you have to have a plan on, if I'm going to build a portfolio and build residual income, what's my actual break-even point? When do I start actually making a profit? And what's my increase? Meaning, in terms of compensation, I want to purchase this property. I want to carry it for 10 years with a 5 to 7% increase in income coming in annually for 10 years. And then the goal is to sell it. So the plan has to make sense. There's capital expenses, there is carrying costs, there's regular maintenance expenses that you're going to have, and then there's vacancy time that the property's not going to be vacant. All that cost and expense has to be calculated in. I have formulas. I teach classes. I'd be happy to invite everyone that's on this platform, right? Of course, right now, of course, to one of my classes. But I hope I answered your question, uh, Miss Toll. I think it's Miss Toll.
Yeah, Miss Violet told, yeah. And then also, I re-dropped your contact information for anyone that want to follow up. We have a few minutes left. She said thank you so much, so that did answer her question. So I did drop for anybody that want to talk with Mr. Kemp more. Okay, let's mute out this line. Um, Anybody that want to follow up with Mr. Kemp one-on-one, I just dropped again his email and direct telephone number in the chat feed. As way of announcements, we do have some upcoming in-person events and digital events this coming Saturday. If you're in the Washington D.C. area, we will be at Busboys and Poets at 2:00 for our next in-person networking event. We also have live performances. We have a question from Sierra. How do we sign up for your class, Darryl?
Normally, once you contact me, then I generate a list of interests, and then I'll reach back out to the individual. Our classes, of course, we just did one in January. Our next class after that will be in September. 3 classes a year on our real estate investment. All right, it's very detailed. I normally have private money, in hard money, lenders there. I have cash app. Yeah, I'm sorry. I normally have private money and hard money lenders at the event to speak. I'm a general contractor myself, but I have another general contractor because I want to speak on the investment portion. I like to bring in people that I know that's qualified and that can render the services that you need. I don't teach shortcuts. So there's nothing in my classes that you're going to ever hear, because we all got an uncle, a cousin, a brother that can do this and do that. But at the end, what you end up doing is paying twice for it because they're going to do something wrong or they're going to do something that isn't up to code or whatever. And I believe in paying one time and getting the production and the product that you're looking for in a timely manner. So we're going to teach you the right way. I'm licensed in all aspects of insurance, construction, and real estate. So I'm going to teach you the right way. I'm going to put you in contact with actual resources that's going to take care of you because they're all licensed. They don't want complaints with the insurance commission, the real estate commission, the Maryland Home Improvement Commission. They don't want no complaints with anything. And at the same time, you want a positive return on your investment. And our goal is to take care of our clients.
Thank you so much, Darryl. Again, I encourage anybody, if you're looking to work with a company, I
No, that's
wholeheartedly
not mine.
encourage you to reach out to Darryl Kemp and his company. When it
It's,
comes
it's,
to work ethic, I repeat
it's
once
not
again, they have impeccable work ethic, and so you're going to get quality services, but also the education behind it. Once again, as we get ready to close out, this Saturday we will be at
mine.
Busboys
Bella?
and Poets
Cash App.
at 2 p.m.
It's my cash app.
for our networking event at Busboys and Poets right on MLK in DC. So if you're in the area and you want to come out and network, that event is for social entrepreneurs. We're going to have a lot of civic organizations, founders of nonprofit organizations that's going to be attending on this Saturday. We also will have live performances. Then on March 1st is going to be our Unlocked 2025 Digital Business Conference. That's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have business owners from 25 different markets. We are building strategic collaboration network in 25 states. We're going to have business owners that represent in each market. That's during the daytime from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Then for those that are in the area locally in the DMV, at 5 p.m., we're going to be at the Gaylord at the National Harbor. We have a sponsor, Signal Financial Credit Union, is sponsoring that CEO networking event. Food and beverage is covered. I'm very grateful for our sponsorship with them. So they'll be there at 5 p.m. If you have not gotten the invite for that event, it is an invite only for the 5 p.m. I'll be reaching out to those that will be attending. So those are all the announcements of the most immediate upcoming events this Saturday, February 22nd in DC. And then March 1st is the Unlock Digital Business Conference during the day from 10 to 3. Then at 5 p.m. with our partner and sponsor, Signal Financial Credit Union, will be at the Gaylord at the National Harbor at 5 p.m. Darryl, any final words before we close out? Oh, let's unmute your line. Let's see. Oh, hit the unmute. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any
All I would
final
say
words?
is that a real estate purchase or sale is a big decision that you're going to make in your life. It's going to be one of the largest purchases or acquisition or sales that you're going to make. Just make sure that the person or company that represents you have your best interests in mind. All right. There's a lot of people that will encourage you to sell your property for less or or put you in a situation in terms of acquiring a property and paying more for what it's actually worth. So again, make sure you do your due diligence and answering the right questions to an individual to make sure that they have your interests or to make sure that they have your best interests. All right. Again, like I said, we all have family members and friends and things of that nature. But again, ask the questions that's important to you. That's going to let you feel comfortable that they have your interest or your best interest and not so much of their own. All right. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Absolutely. Well, we're so grateful for your time and willing to share knowledge on today, and also grateful to each person that joined us virtually on today. Thank you for your time. Time is something you don't get back. So for the fact that you graced us today, we're grateful and we're thankful. For those of you that will be out on Saturday, I look forward to seeing you this Saturday. For those of you that's going to be a part of our digital business conference on March 1st. I look forward to connecting with you then. Without further ado, we're going to get ready to close out the Zoom call for today. I'm going to stop the recording. I will send this out for those that may want to listen to the replay. So let me hit stop real quick.